Hello, Internet! Gino, that Pinguino Grieco here again with another episode of Deep Listens. This is going to be one of our regular episodes, and we are going to be talking about The Witness. I am joined, as always, by Billy the Completionist Rothert.
Yes, that is my name. Not so much for this game. I tried as hard as I could, but I wasn't able to 100% The Witness in 4 days. Sorry, guys.
I tried so hard, and just nothing. This game, it doesn't want to be conquered, very clearly. And I'm also joined by Peter, I hate Wes Anderson movies, Busby.
I do hate Wes Anderson movies. Not as applicable for this game as some old ones. But, point being made. Fun fact for this podcast, another thing I've read recently. You guys remember the Dutch East India Company?
Of course, who doesn't?
Lessons, right? One of the best. Take a stab at it. In today's dollars, what the valuation of the Dutch East India Company would be.
$1 trillion.
Too low.
$3 trillion.
$7 trillion.
$7.4 trillion. So just one company alone, valuation, is almost half of our yearly GDP. It's the largest company in history.
Well, when you have a monopoly on,
Spicy
3 continents.
Tulips. Yeah. It's the only thing between Europe and Asia. But $7.4 trillion, that's absurd.
Yeah. Makes sense why they were able to command so many things.
All the spice. This is like Dune or something.
And we are joined also by special guest Tyler Morgan, game
Hey,
development student. We are talking about The Witness, and so we needed some expertise. And Tyler is bringing our expertise. No pressure.
Yeah, this isn't a hard game to analyze at all.
Real simple. It's a side scroll,
Yeah,
right?
it's straightforward.
Yeah, it's a puzzle game. It's really simple.
Yeah. Practically Mario.
It's just lines. It's circles and lines.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all you need.
But today, so we do not have any commentary. So people, if you want to send feedback, reminder, I'm going to do this again. The Witness, people have some feedback on The Witness. It's a really complex game. It evokes strong emotions.
Yes, it does.
Go ahead. You can tweet at DeepListensPod, send emails to deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com, or leave a comment on deeplistens.libsyn.com on any of our podcasts. So, going into it, our part 1 today is going to be a little short because there are very few things you can talk about in The Witness without going into spoiler territory. So, if you do not want to hear spoilers on The Witness, unfortunately this week is going to be a little bit bare for you. But we're going to try and do some spoiler-free content just because there is some stuff worth talking about that doesn't ruin the game for you. So, I guess first place to start off, I thought the visuals of this game, like the composition, the color palette, was some of the most striking that I've seen in a while. Some of the best visual design, if not most pixels on screen at a single time.
I would say 10 out of 10 aesthetics.
So what what was your favorite visual style necessarily? Because I loved like the hot pinks and the teals, the orange.
We're talking about color swatches right now, dude. Are we like painting a fucking living room right now?
Well, the contrast, I was going to say, if naming levels, would that be a spoiler? Can I name a level?
No, we have to name the levels.
You can name like an area.
All right, so
people have seen the island.
Yeah, the contrast of the red of the trees and the gray of the monastery. In the monastery level, I thought that was probably the best as far as
So let's actually just like name the levels, right?
Yeah.
We have the first level is the dock, right?
Okay.
The next level is the orange trees, where it's all like fall.
Yep.
Third level is the sun desert temple place, like the sun temple.
Yeah, sun desert temple place. The level name.
They don't have proper names, but there's a very specific
fake
thing.
Egypt. Fake Egypt.
There's like a castle.
Yeah.
I think it's referred to as the keep. There's the Asian monastery with the red trees, like Pete's just talking about.
Fake Japan.
There's a greenhouse.
Are there a lot of monasteries in Asia?
Whatever. There's a marshy
monastery
swamp
where you train priests
type place. I think if
Okay.
we're gonna get into like hard definitions, maybe.
Yeah, that's fine.
I don't know, whatever. There's a swamp marsh type place. There's a treehouse level. There's like a rock quarry or like a mining type level. A level called bamboo forest, and then there's a level called the town.
Yeah.
And those 11 areas compose like the main quote unquote levels for this game. It's hard to say levels because this game is, I guess, about as non-linear as it gets.
Yeah, there are some logical barriers that prevent you from progressing in certain areas, but
it's
there is
more
nothing
than like a Metroid kind of you get some ability to do something new.
No, there's nothing structurally keeping you outside of your own head. If
Yeah.
you know what to do, you can get anywhere from the start of the game.
It's
So
almost like Mega Man in that way.
Yeah.
You could tackle them in any order, but certain ones will be easier based on what you've done before.
Yeah, except
That's pretty close.
Yeah,
it's
right?
not like Airman is immune to bullets
No.
if you pick him first. Whereas I don't think like some of the levels, just if you go there first, you're just gonna have a bad time. You're just gonna be confused.
It'll just be less fun.
True, but then again, where the game starts you and like the very first opening scenes of the game are like they kind of nurture you into this environment. They hold your hand for a little bit while you take your first steps in this world. But let's not forget, we started talking about aesthetics,
Yep.
right? So I listed 11 general worlds. There are some like little areas that you can explore as well that aren't considered levels, but they have a theme. And I will say that all the aesthetics in this world are so unique for their area. It was absolutely a work of art to create like a dozen or so tiny little environments that were supposed to be blended together on this one island that is the setting for The Witness.
Yeah, it is. The Witness is very reminiscent of Myst. I think intentionally so.
Yeah.
Like Mist Island.
Except Myst, everything is very. They feel all of the environments feel like they are pulled from different time periods and they are based on different physical machinery. Whereas The Witness feels like it's engineered. Like some parts are very naturalistic and not just purely mechanical, and the puzzle screens actually contrast very nicely with the natural environments and almost blend. They both contrast and sometimes blend organically with them. So Myst, it seemed a little bit. If anything, this is even more well composed than Myst is, and that I like Myst. I played that game, played Riven. Like both of those games are visually still pretty striking, but The Witness got me. I don't visually speaking. If for a while I hated staring at the puzzle screens, but whenever I looked anywhere else, I was usually taken aback by something. So, what was everyone's favorite visuals for a place? Mine was definitely the trees, the pink trees, that forest.
Yeah. Well, like I said, mine was the monastery.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the pagoda as well.
Pagoda.
Visuals. I think my favorite was shit, this is kind of hard.
I know it's hard to pick. They're all so visually striking.
I really like the treehouse.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I could live in that treehouse area.
And the treehouse was one. Like, there's sort of, how much can I say here? There are different ways the mechanics are incorporated into the environment, and the treehouse did a good job incorporating the puzzles in a distinct, sort of unique manner.
Yeah. So we can talk about what this game's like skeletal structure is without spoiling. I mean, this is going to be the whole trick of this first half of the podcast is not spoiling anything that we don't want to spoil. So the skeletal structure of this game is that you are a player and you don't have any real like motives or objectives from the very beginning of the game, but you just know that you have to solve puzzles. And I think there's something like over 600 in the whole game.
650, I want to say.
650 or something like that. So there's a lot of content to go through, and you start very slow, and then each of these individual worlds might have like I don't know, 50 or 100 puzzles in it.
Yeah, they might have 50 or 100 puzzles in them, and then on top of that, there might be some puzzles that are not on the critical path that you might not think are essential for anything.
Lots of quote-unquote side quest puzzles.
Only to then come back and find out that those puzzles were 100% critical to another path of puzzles. Yeah, this game's dense in a way that most games aren't. Like, you can get from one side of the island to the other in maybe 10 minutes.
Oh, maybe. Less than that if you have a good path. Like, if you know how to go there.
Yeah, and
you use the run button.
And you maybe can stumble across like 100 puzzle screens by accident if you're just running around, but there are 600. It's nuts. Anything else that we're not spoiling anything?
Should we talk about
no.
the soundtrack?
Like, there's more to the aesthetics that I want to get, and this is definitely not spoiler territory. But this world was built and designed to be observed.
Mm-hmm.
Right? This world was meant to be observed. This is not just a pretty environment for a game to happen. This world is designed to be explored and observed. I use the word observed for a specific reason because the way you look at things in this world matters. And like looking at like a specific tree or something, if you look at it at a different angle, might have like a person's face on it. It's really cool. You know, one of my favorite visual effects was somewhere in the marsh level was the statue of a female. And if you look at it while lining it up with the very large female with her hand reaching out attached to the mountain, they line up so it looks like their hands are like touching. They're reaching out towards one another.
Yeah.
Somewhere in the treehouse level, there's like this cluster of branches that mean nothing to you, but if you go stand on a very specific spot and then you look at it, it looks like a man who's like rubbing like a stick together trying to build a fire.
Yep, and
little things like that.
And it's on a burnt tree.
It's on like a burnt out treehouse. So this is not anything that's like directly spoiler of the game or how it's played, but the world that we're in here is designed to be observed from many different angles. It's designed to be explored, and I appreciate that in a game. You know, I appreciate that in a game like Shadow of the Colossus, where we had, where we got rewarded for exploring the world.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Pete, did you know that you could like grab onto fish and like swim around with fish in Shadow of the Colossus?
No, I never tried.
Did you know that you could fly on hawks?
That one I did know. I did know you could grab the hawks.
Yeah, there's like, you can find like turtles and deer and stuff in that game. You have to like look. You have to take a minute away from your direct objective and explore the world. And this game did that, and I liked it.
Yeah. 7 years of development, man.
I know. And like, when I found the credits, they mentioned in the credits specifically architect. Like architectural designers, and it made a ton of sense that they had professional architects or people who at least were doing just architectural design for this game. Like, it is staggering how much they managed to fit into this.
Yeah, he brought in the architect. I don't know if it's an architect or architects the first time before they'd actually brought in artists. So everything was laid out and carefully designed before the game even had an aesthetic yet. It was just very well composed, you know, structurally sound buildings with no color. So
I was playing this game a lot of times when my mom and my sister were in the room. You know, just in my family, we like to play games, it's like more common to have a video game on the TV in the family room than it is to have anything else. And my mom and sister just appreciate when I have an aesthetically pleasing, beautiful game on the screen. My mom said this. She said it looks like someone had taken like a scrapbook of their whole like life's adventures and just put it into video game form. Like every cool thing a person had ever seen, they just took a picture of it, made a scrapbook, and then used that as the food for thought to make this game.
Yeah, and I actually played The Witness most of the time with someone by my side helping me out or like looking at the game with me, be it my sister or my girlfriend. And when I was playing, it is actually a great game to play co-op, even though it's not necessarily, no one else is controlling the game alongside you. But a lot of the times just having another person to look at the puzzles or to call things out to you, just having another set of eyes really helps. And so I would definitely recommend playing this game with another person if you can swing it. Just because also there's that nature of sharing the experience with one another that I think is really valuable. I don't know, did anyone else play this game with any sort of people by your side?
No, I mean, I was flying solo, but the second I got paper and pencil, it became a million times easier.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have to have, or as far as I'm concerned, you need graph paper with you by your side as you do it.
Yeah.
I was able to, I played on Steam, and I used, the screen cap button.
Oh, yeah, constantly. Yeah, my desk is still covered in these.
Yep, just little boxes.
I never really needed to use screen captures or pictures to solve puzzles, and it was only because, I'm not going to say that I was perfect at this game, but no one,
I'm not going to say I'm the smartest man in the world.
No, it's not true. But I had just been conditioned through 4 or 5 years of logic and philosophy to know how, my brain was just conditioned to think in ways that made it easier for me to do these puzzles. I still got stuck on some. I was still stuck, and this game was hard. But a lot of stuff, you could logically rule out a lot of the options you had for most of these puzzles.
Yeah, you could logically rule it out. It was just, I found the game, at least with some puzzles, where I wasn't sure what the rules were quite yet. I used the graph paper to map out things that I was picturing in my head that I had a hard time visualizing, just combining and recombining shapes and stuff like that, that it took some of the workload out of my head and put it back onto, how am I going to draw this line instead of what could these shapes even be?
Yeah, it's just offloading some of that sort of mental energy, You got to move on to other things.
Yeah. And did anyone want to talk about Pete, you were bringing up the soundtrack?
Yeah, well, I think it segues nicely, actually, from Billy's point that this game's sort of meant to be observed. So just in looking, across what some other people have been saying about the games, one of the comments is that it is sort of dying for a soundtrack. It is, it's basically a silent game. But maybe, if you wanted to be charitable about the whole thing, and I did sort of miss the soundtrack, but if you wanted to be charitable, you could say, well, that would just be distracting from sort of the visual spectacle that is unfolding before you.
Yeah, and I think that what I started to appreciate because of how bare the sound was how much attention to detail was put into things like footsteps and running water. This game, I haven't played many games where one foot can land on one material and it sounds one way, and then another footstep can land on a different material and it's a different sound associated with it. And I really noticed it because of how bare the background was. I could be running around an area where I'm on grass, and then I'm on stone, and then I'm on wood, because
if you run around the town, you can trip on the little bricks. Not actually physically trip, but you can hear that if you run next to a building that has some broken bricks next to it, you'll hear the sound of bricks being turned over as you run through it. Very small details of how you move through the world makes a big difference.
Yeah, and the water, the thing is, I don't want to spoil stuff. That's the thing. Sound is very important in this game in spots. And so you can't... if it had a distracting soundtrack, I don't know that it would play as well as it does.
All senses are important in this game. It requires you to use all of them.
Especially smell, yeah.
Especially smell.
Just holding my laptop up.
But, there were some times when the way you looked at stuff mattered, the way stuff sounded mattered, the way your character moved mattered. It all made a difference. It was an entire sensory package. This whole game was.
Yeah, and we're brushing up on spoilers left and right. I feel like we need to remove these shackles. So, last question before we get into the spoiler half of the podcast. Did everyone feel like they got their $40 worth? Because one of the main comments that I've seen about this game on the internet is, it's a puzzle game. How can it be $40? That's too much money. As Tyler, you mentioned, it was 7 years of development. That's a lot of time and effort and energy, and $40 is not that much money. So on the one hand, that certainly makes sense. And what did you guys feel like? Did you feel like $40 was too much, just right, too little, and did you enjoy it tangentially?
I believe Portal 2 sold for $60, and it was like a 6-hour experience with maybe 6 more hours of co-op. And I imagine most players would get at least 16 to 20 hours out of The Witness easy just doing the critical path. So it's already good value just in comparison.
I mean, in terms of... See, here's where I want to draw a distinction. In terms of gameplay hours, yeah, I got my money's worth, right? Like, it definitely fills up the time. In terms of enjoyment hours, I don't think I did. I didn't get $40 worth of enjoyment out of this game.
Well, Billy, you go, and then I have a question for Pete.
I got my money's worth and will continue to get my money's worth. This is the kind of game that I like a lot.
Yeah, I'm going to say, yeah, you're crazy if you think 40 is too much. Because I think that this game has just so much going on in it that you could play this game for 80 and still not see everything. And so if it's a dollar to hour count ratio, if that's what people still use to measure how much games should cost, then it hits that just fine. And Pete, how much do you think your disdain for some of the puzzles in this game were impacted by the fact that we had to do a podcast on it? Because I feel like if I was playing it not to see the end, if I was just playing it to play it, if I had, was playing it over the course of weeks or months instead of cramming it all into 2 weeks, I don't think I would have had so much disdain for some of the puzzles.
Yeah, no, I think definitely sort of the constraints we placed on ourselves in virtue of why we were playing it affected my experience of the game. But I will say, if we weren't playing it for a podcast, I wouldn't have finished it. I would have put it down and said, enough with this, and then never picked it up again.
The Witness is the kind of game that you can play in between other gaming projects because you can stop and start at any time. Mm-hmm. And quite literally, the way this game autosaves is exactly that. The game autosaves like every couple seconds. So every time you finish a puzzle, it autosaves. If you turn the game off right then, your character you're looking at that same puzzle screen finished again. If you just walk away and you're standing in the middle of a path and there's trees around you and you just turn off the game, chances are you're going to be right there again when you turn the game back on. So it's designed architecturally to lend well to, hey, you know what? You might need to take a break from this puzzle game and come back to it. If I wasn't playing this for a podcast, and I only played this game like over 3 or 4 days, I had to cram like some overnighters in this game in order to finish it so I could talk about it for the podcast. If I didn't do that, if I didn't have to do that, I would love this game probably 3 times as much. And I love it a lot already. Yeah, I would definitely play this game to completion. I would 100% this game. It will just take me weeks and months to do so, but I would be able to do it casually at my own pace.
Yeah, and I think that the last non-spoiler thing I'd like to leave is this is a game that you want to, when you run up against a wall, instead of banging your head against it for hours on end just to make progress, you want to go to another place. Just go someplace else. This game is very non-linear. Chances are there are like 3 or 4 or 5 areas that you haven't even walked to that will have a puzzle that you are capable of doing and will take you on a whole nother thread of puzzles that will fill your time and not frustrate you. So I wasn't able to do that because I had to get to the end, but if you are playing this game fresh, don't bang your head against a single puzzle once you start getting frustrated, try something else. That is the best advice I could give you, because once I finished the game, quote unquote, I finished the game, I went back into it, and just played it to play it, and my experience was completely different. Okay, Billy, you want to talk about the first 10 minutes of the game?
We'll tell you what. Why don't we just look? What we can take. Why don't we take the shackles off now? We'll issue a warning to our listeners, and then we can take our break a little bit later on, and we'll just have half spoilers, half non-spoilers in the first half.
Yeah, but then
I don't feel like I'm going to spoil anything right now.
Okay, then just mention your thing because I want to make a hard cut so that people know.
Yeah,
Okay.
let's make
fair.
a hard cut. We can keep this as like a short first half of the podcast, but I feel like we haven't actually talked about anything in this game yet.
All right, Billy, launch in, baby.
And I'm not going to spoil anything that you're not going to get in the first 5 minutes of gameplay. Like, what happens when you just turn the game on for the first time? Where are you? Like, who are you? What are you doing? We're not spoiling anything we're talking about.
We don't know who you are.
You're right. So when you first turn on the game, like you've just bought it, download it, you first turn it on. You don't even get like a menu start screen. It just turns on, which is cool. That's sort of this word's kind of cliche, but like that sort of broke some of the meta rules about like how a game is played. You know, you turn it on, you see like the title screen, and then you can like select new game and select your difficulty. That's not here. It just turns on and you're just playing. And you start in this tunnel. It's kind of a dark tunnel. You just walk forward. You solve the easiest puzzle. You just like it's like a straight line go from beginning to end, and you open the door, and then you're quote unquote in this world, right? You enter into like tutorial level where there's like super easy puzzles, and it's sort of like you look at this screen, you start at a specific circle or dot in one corner or one part of the puzzle panel, and you just have to draw a line that gets to the end. It's basically a maze. So they get sort of progressively harder in this level, but it's still super easy. I mean, all of you guys will agree that like the opening like garden that you start in is the easiest puzzle in the game by far.
Yeah, of course.
It's just get to the end, and by any means
Honestly.
necessary, no constraints, no rules, no anything.
Mm-hmm.
You progress through this world and find out that there are these panels that are connected by wires to other panels. Once you solve one, it lights up like the next one in the series. So you can the game isn't linear, but it gives you like gentle nudges in the right direction to where you're supposed to go. And then once you finish this like tutorial level, you get brought into this super open world. You have access to the whole island. The first thing you might do is look around. You'll see that there's a ton of different areas. Like you can see like 2 or 3 areas from the minute you walk out of your tutorial zone. And you can see like a huge mountain in the middle of the island. And it seems to be important because there's this like giant statue of this lady on it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like some importance. You have very little to go off of. The game just says here you are, nameless, pseudo genderless character as well, even though it seems like a male form when you look at its shadow.
Mm-hmm.
But this nameless, detailless protagonist that just is supposed to solve puzzles in this environment to some end that we don't know about yet. We don't know what we're doing. We know that there's this island with many different areas. There's like a big, important looking mountain. We don't know anything about it. And it's assumed by the player that, all right, I guess I have to just start solving puzzles now. And you do. That is what you do in this game. You just start exploring the world and solving puzzles. That's like what The Witness is in the first 10 minutes of the game. I've got it off my chest. I just feel like we could not finish the first half of this podcast without telling them anything about the game.
I know, and that's what's so rough about this thing, because the joy of The Witness, for the most part, is figuring this stuff out yourself or figuring out with someone. And maybe we're being too spoiler cautious, and if we're being too spoiler cautious, hey, there's going to be part 2 in like less than a minute or 2. So just download that one and listen to that.
About
and we'll talk
one
freely.
last thing,
Okay.
which is the use of guides or walkthroughs with this game.
Sure.
I will admit that I used in 2 or 3 out of the 380 puzzles that I finished for the game, I used guides on like 2 or 3 puzzles. That's like less than 1% had to use a guide to help me.
Yeah, I used a guide once.
Yeah. That, I think, is a pretty common theme for people that are playing this game the first time. I know that if I play this game again, if I start a new game with everything erased, if I nuke my save and I start over, I'm almost 100% certain that I'm never going to even touch a guide because I want the thrill, the intellectual reward of solving the puzzles myself.
Yeah.
That was one thing I sort of, I had to consult a guide every once in a while myself, but one thing I sort of thought about was whether or not I should be using even paper and pencil, or should I be trying to model the situation of the game's protagonist as closely as possible in order to experience what they're experiencing.
Like, using a walkthrough is cheating, but, like, is a paper and pencil, like, taking notes, is that cheating too?
Well, yeah,
My protagonist didn't have pencils.
Yeah. By the time I got to the walkthrough, I was already like, you know what? Fuck it. I'll cheat. I don't care. But, like, I thought about it, and I was like, well, I don't, like, play zombie games and, like, load myself up with, shotguns and post sentries at the door or something.
But what if you did?
Right? Would it be more enjoyable? Would it be more authentic? Just something I thought about.
What do you think, Tyler?
Oh, no, I assumed that it was supposed to be played with paper and pencil at the very least, or some other tools, because there's a lot of components that just require more visual memory than most people have installed. Yeah, no, my desk is still covered with many, many graphs of all the papers, and it's kind of a cool keepsake from the game. But
some great Foley work right there.
Yeah.
Just so many papers. So much.
Yeah, well, and some of it's like written on the back of my level design coursework, so it just kind of all, which was for a puzzle game, so it just kind of all flows together. But
so you were in a unique position to appreciate this game?
Yeah.
Would you guys recommend this game to friends, and under what circumstances?
I would recommend it strongly if I know someone enjoys puzzle games and has a lot of patience.
I would recommend it potentially, but with a lot of heavy caveats.
I think I would probably soften someone up with Antechamber first, because Antechamber and The Witness have a really similar method of engagement, right? Where discovering the mechanics is a mechanic in and of itself. So if the Antechamber plays like a indie-er version of The Witness. So if they got through that, then they're probably ready.
I've yet to play Antechamber, but I still want to. Billy, would you recommend it?
I definitely would, and I would say don't play it all at once, and play it with a friend so they can experience it too, and let someone else hold the controller and just walk around this fucking beautiful world that someone created. Because sometimes taking a break from the puzzles that's part of the game, is taking a break from the puzzles. You're winning the game by completing the puzzles, and I think you're also winning the game by taking a break and enjoying the environment too.
Yeah.
Both inside the game and outside the game, like with your friends.
Also, I don't know if the game cares if you're winning it. I'm pretty sure the game...
True.
This game is very much does not give a shit if you're winning.
That's a good point.
Okay, with that little teaser, let's move on to our spoiler part. So, we're going to take a quick cut right here. Remember, if you want to send feedback, if you know how to play this game and you feel we spoiled something, go ahead, tweet at deeplistenspod or send an email, a sternly worded email to deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com. One day we'll have an Etsy and we could plug that. One day. And also you can leave a message or a comment at deeplistens.libsyn.com. So thank you, Pete.
Yep. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Come back again.
Thank you, Tyler.
Yep. Thanks, y'all. Thank
you, Billy.
Part 2 is the part that matters here, guys.
Yeah, part 2 is going to be much longer. Part 2 is the part that matters.
Everybody
just come for part 2. Thanks. I had a lot of fun. This is probably the hardest first part of a podcast ever because we can't talk about anything without spoiling everything.
Okay, time to take the shackles off. 3, 2, 1. Be back in a bit. Peace.